The order of the Seder. Is that right? Are you with me? Okay. The order of the Seder, by the way, these here are for you to keep. You'll enjoy them. Okay? The order of the Seder, what is the name Seder, the word Seder mean? What happens if you say in Hebrew, Kol Seder? What does that mean?
Everything is in order.
It's okay. What does Seder mean? Okay? What does Seder mean? Order. Everything's in order. Everything's in order. Now we got it right. Okay. So, Kol Seder, everything's a Seder. In Judaism, everything's in order. Pesach certainly has to go in order. The order of the Pesach Seder contains 15 different observances. We make a rhyme out of it. And it goes simply like this. You can read it with me in the Hebrew or the English, whichever you please. Kadesh urechatz karpas yachatz magid rochta motzi matzah moror korech shulchan orech tzafun borech halel nirtzah. That's a catchy tune. I hope you enjoyed it, because I ain't singing it again. But if you want to hear it again, go to YouTube and Facebook, and you'll find me, and you can hear it over and over and over and over again. Thanks to Jess. So, point is, of course, is that the idea of singing this at the beginning of the Seder is a very important part of the Seder. In other words, to tell the people involved, to tell everyone, the children and everyone else, there's a Seder, everything's organized here. In order to do that, you want to go through all 15 steps. First, you want to announce them. Here they come. And each time that you come to one of them, you go through it again, and sing it again, and stop at the point that you're on. Let's say we're on Magid. See Magid number 5? So we go, Kadesh Urechatz Karpas Yachatz Magid. And then you know where you're at. So I play musical chairs. I'm going to go ahead and play musical chairs. Okay? You know, right? May get your seat before the music stops, right? So here's the same thing. Now, of course, anybody who at the table makes a mistake and goes a little bit above, so we penalize them a little bit. Point is that you want to know where we're at and know what comes first and what comes after. Everything's in a proper order. The Shloah HaKadosh, great rabbi who wrote a book of great scholarships in 150, 200 years ago, wrote that Simona Milsa, the signs, each and every one of them, has significance, value, and power. Just a word. Not just a deed, but just the word itself means so much. Kadesh. It means something. And it's important to announce it. And then we do it. Now, it says it over there. According to many people, reciting the appropriate word from the rhyme before performing the mitzvah to which it applies, Kadesh, Urechatz, and so on, is a great mitzvah, as we said. So let's begin by taking a look at all 15 of them and find for me the only 2 that are mitzvahs of the Torah. Matzah is one, no doubt about it. Who said matzah? Okay, matzah.
Hallel.
What?
Hallel.
Nope. Halal is not. There's nowhere in the Torah that says to say halal. But what?
The blessing of
Oh, so you're right about that. So I'll stand corrected. There is a requirement of the Torah to say grace after me. That's called Baruch and Birkat HaMazon. And the fact of the matter is that it is a mitzvah of the Torah, because the Torah says so. In other words, every time you acknowledge or identify the mitzvah of the Torah, you have to say where it is. So you say, in Devarim, it says in Deuteronomy, it says in the 5th book, V'yachalta, v'savata, v'beirachta. You shall eat, be satisfied, and bench, and say Birkat HaMazon. So therefore, you're right. Birkat Hamazon is a, we call, when we affirm a mitzvah of the Torah, we call it in Aramaic mitzvah doraisa. Oraisa is Aramaic for Torah. That's the language that the Talmud uses. As vis-a-vis, let's say, mitzvah Rabbanan, which is of rabbinic origin. Now, the bottom line is that even though Borech is a mitzvah of the Torah, it's not unique to Pesach. Oh, so the answer is Magid. Magid is to tell the story. The Torah teaches, V'yigaradon avincha, you shall tell your son the story of the departure from Egypt. So therefore, since that's what it says, therefore, the Torah, we have to tell the story. And that's basically the thrust of the Haggadah that we have in front of us. The story of the departure from Egypt. What we like to focus on a whole lot is really the departure, more than just the actual slavery and suffering and misery. And even though we will not belittle the intensity of the suffering and the slavery, nevertheless, we want to emphasize the miraculous departure. And from there we will learn how intense the slavery was. For as intense as the slavery was, that's how powerful the miracle will be, awesome the miracle will be to take us out. If it's a small suffering, so then it's a small miracle. An amazing and awesome suffering, and then is an awesome miracle that affects our departure from Egypt. Okay, so those are the two mitzvahs of the Torah. Or we'll say three for now. Can you tell me, can you identify for me here a mitzvah, any mitzvahs that are the Rabbanan? Mitzvah the Rabbanan. As vis-a-vis, let's say, other areas of legislation of the Rabbanan. Let's say the Rabbanan have mitzvahs. The Rabbanan also have customs. The Rabbanan also have decrees and other legislations. But we want to find out a full-fledged mitzvah. Yeah?
I would say everything else.
No, not quite. Because there are certain things that are custom, and certain things that are minhag, and certain things that are absolutely an obligation, a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. How many people remember the number of a mitzvah d'Rabbanan that there are? 7. Okay? You find only 7 here.
Washing your hands.
Washing your hands is right. Washing your hands is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, right there. Now, of course, it's not unique to Pesach for that matter, correct? Because in fact, the washing of the hands is done every time you want to eat a meal. But nevertheless, we identify it as the mitzvah d'Rabbanan, one of the 7. Yes?
Bitter herbs.
Oh, so the bitter herbs is a real unique issue. We talked about this, and we'll talk about it again real quick. We'll say that the Torah tells us to eat matzahs on Pesach. Then the Torah tells us that when you bring the Passover offering, the Korban Pesach, you have to bring with it matzah, al matzah so mororim yochluhu, you shall eat it together with matzah and moror. This being said, if we are unable to bring the Korban Pesach because we don't have the Beit HaMikdash anymore, and we're not able to bring the sacrifice, so then the moror becomes also no longer applicable, because moror and bitter herbs was only established as an obligation for to eat together with the Korban Pesach, with the Passover sacrifice. So without the sacrifice, without the Korban, so we really aren't obligated anymore to eat moror. Now matzah we still eat in any event, midoraisa, from the Torah. Why? Because matzah is recorded in the Torah so many other times as an obligation for that night, for the Pesach night, irrespective of whether there's a korban or not. If it's a fact that in addition to eating matzah on Pesach night, when you do eat the korban, you do eat the sacrifice, the meat from the sacrifice, you have to have matzah with it. We understand that. But if there's no sacrifice, there's still matzah. But not so bitter herbs. Because moror was mentioned only in connection with the korban. So if there's no korban, there's no sacrifice, there's no moror. Why do we do moror then? That's the rule that we learned some time ago called Zeichel HaMikdash. Remember the way it used to be in the Beis HaMikdash. We have established, the Rabbanan have established many rules called Zeichel HaMikdash. That's called a takana. A takana is not a mitzvah of the Rabbanan, it's not part of the 7, but it's called a ruling of the Rabbanan. A ruling that helps fix up society, makes things better. It's better for our society as a Jewish people to remember the way it used to be in the Beis HaMikdash so that we know what to do when the Beis HaMikdash will be rebuilt with the coming of Mashiach. If that's the case, we need to tomorrow in remembrance of such. So that's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. It's not really a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, it's a takana d'Rabbanan. So let's go through them all now. Let's find out. Let's identify each one. Kadesh. Now, Kadesh, you can argue, is a mitzvah d'oraisa. Because why? Because the Torah says, on Shabbos you should declare Shabbos holy and sanctified and make Kiddush. That's Kadesh. However, some say that the mitzvah of doing so midrabanan, of doing so over a cup of wine is midrabanan. In which you can simply say, today's holy, and be done with it. And we do so in the davening. Or we do so, let's say, when the women light the candles, they can say, Lavlik Ne'asher Shabbat Kodesh. And that immediately does the trick of declaring that it's holy. But the Rabbanan wanted us to do a little bit extra and to connect it with the meal. Yeshayahu Hanavi, the great Isaiah the prophet, told us, the Karasa, the Shabbos Oneg, call out Shabbos when there's a time of delight. Kiddush b'makom suda, when you have Kiddush. You have Kiddush in the place of the meal. So this being said, we understand that, thank you. That we do the Kiddush again over a cup of wine to introduce the meal. So it's really together a deraisa d'Rabbanan. It's the Torah requires it to be said, but we do it extra with an extra ruling, an extra takana, an extra benefit by doing it next to the meal to really connect the whole Shabbos, the whole Yom Tov experience with both spiritual and physical by making Kiddush at the meal. So Kaddish will say is both. Orchaz, coming to wash before eating karpas. There are various times when we are required to wash the Netilat Yadayim. The two most popular and well known are in the morning and at the for a meal. Now, for the meal, we all wash, as you know, and require a bracha. We say a bracha, and that bracha, all brachas, by the way, are Rabbanan, except for Birkat HaMazon, as we learned many times. So therefore, that's another mitzvah Rabbanan. But the only thing is here, we're going to wash without a bracha. And it says we do not make a bracha. So while you're familiar with washing hands before a meal, and when you wake up in the morning, and do so with a bracha, there are many other times that you would wash hands for other occasions with a cup, Netilat Yadayim, and not make a bracha. Anybody know some of those occasions? Before we pray. That's a very good point. What are the other times that you wash without a bracha? When you wash without a bracha, yeah. Restroom, of course. Another time that you would wash is coming out of a cemetery.
Yes.
But no bracha. Another time you would wash without a bracha is no one does require a bracha. That's a bracha. That's a bracha. Another time you would wash is when you would come out of a mikveh. When you come out of a mikveh, you have to wash. Another time is when you, after you cut your nails or cut your hair. These are washings without a bracha. But here's a well-known, a not so well-known time, and that is you should wash your hands from the Tilat Yadayim, whenever you eat a fruit or a vegetable that will be dipped in liquid. So if you're going to rinse an apple, you really have to wash for it. Now, very many people know about that. In fact, very many people may know it and even neglect it. It's fallen into neglect, to be perfectly honest. But here, we will wash the washing without a bracha, and do so because right after karpas, I'm going to eat a vegetable dipped in salt water. So because of the fact that I'm taking a vegetable and dipping it, that requires that Netilat Yadayim beforehand. And that's why it's done. So of course the question then says, okay, what's karpas then for? What's the whole purpose of karpas? When we get to the whole purpose of karpas, you'll find that's the whole Seder. And it's simple custom, not a mitzvah, not a deraisa, not a derabbanan. It's a simple custom that tells you the nature of the whole Seder. And that is to say, I'm doing this for one purpose only, to arouse the children to ask questions. I'm going to do whatever I can to do things differently, unusually, to arouse questions. Now, in dipping the vegetable into salt water, usually it doesn't really matter what vegetable it is, but it should. Some people use celery. The point is that it should be not you should not eat a full tizayas, a full size of olive, which ordinarily when we eat, we're required to eat the full size of the size of an olive, or what is called eating, rather than tasting something. But in this case, we want to eat particularly less. And I'll tell you why. Because if you ate more than a kizayas of this vegetable, you'd have to say an after bracha. And what's the after bracha called? Borei nefashot. Exactly. Remember that, Helena? After bracha, borei nefashot. Okay. So you understand that if, let's say, I was eating not a vegetable or a fruit, but rather I ate some grain, like a spaghetti or a cookie, and I ate a full kizayas worth, then I'd have to make an after bracha there too, a much larger one called avamichya. And if I add fruit from Eretz Yisrael, some of the 7 species that were unique to Israel, then I'd have to make an after bracha al eitz. And if I do them together, then I'd make brachas together. And then, of course, if I had wine, the size of the proper amount, which is about more than 3 ounces, 3.5 ounces, then I'd have to make an after bracha for that as well. No doubt about one thing. You must remember that the after brachas are of extreme importance. The after brachas cannot be minimized. They're not as powerful or as important as Birkat HaMazon, which is Midaraisa and Torah. But clearly, a bracha that after grains or after fruit from Israel or after wine, there's a large bracha. It's one bracha called the after bracha, bracha achrona, and it must be said. And this is one thing that cannot be neglected. The bracha for the vegetable or the other fruits or other things that require sha'akol bracha, like for instance meat, fish, cheese, eggs, stuff like that, that would require a small after bracha called borei nefashot. None of these can be minimized. But we don't want you to say an after bracha here. We don't want you to eat a full amount. Sometimes if you eat less than the proper amount, then there's no after bracha, as you know. Person washed for bread and made a motzi lechem in hearts on the bread, took the bread and started to bite into it and found out that it was stale or no good, didn't want to eat it anymore. So unfortunately I throw it away. He didn't eat much of the bread, just a little drop, when he realized he wasn't going to eat it anymore. So he does not say Birkat HaMazon after that. There's nothing to bench on. So therefore, that after bracha Every after bracha, for that matter, including Birkat Hamazon, requires a proper amount. Here's the one time we don't want a proper amount. And why not? So I'll tell you why a little bit later. But the whole purpose of doing this is to arouse the kids. Then I go to the next step, which is Yachatz, and I break the middle matzah, put it away for Afikomen. Is that the rice? Obviously not. There's no mitzvah in the Torah that says break matzahs. Is that a drabonon? No, there's no drabonon that said break a matzah. Torah says eat a matzah. We didn't get the idea of breaking the matzah and then hiding away for Afikomen so you can have a whole game of hide and seek. Well, that's probably for the kids too. So we call that a takara drabonon, a piece of legislation to help guide us midrabanan. A minhag, an important minhag, also to arouse the kids, so to speak. Point is, of course, is that you want to come to the most important part of the Seder, Magid. Tell the story of the Yetzias Mitzrayim. So how do you tell the story? There's no story told without interest. If you haven't got questions, you haven't got a story. If you haven't got manishtam, you haven't got a story. If you haven't got 4 questions, you haven't got it. You can say all that you want. Stories must have interest, and there must be questions to arouse the answers to have meaning. And so the point here is to arouse the children to get into a zone in which they are interested. So therefore the goal is to go out of your way to make things unusual. So the first rule of the story is you got to have questions. Second rule of the story is you got to do unusual things to make the questions asked. Third rule of the story is we're going to learn is that it should be elaborate. And the fourth rule of the story is that it should contain the truth. And the truth is 2 factors, both anti each other. And that's the truth. And I'll explain to you how it works. So, let's go through these first 5 steps in actual live performance. We go to shul, like every other Friday night, every other holiday, and we come home, and father's coming home with his sons, and mothers and daughters are waiting at home, and we're all excited about this wonderful holiday. And the children notice something's a little unusual. There seem to be pillows at the seats of the table. And they're not sure yet really what it's all about. But your children have a way of adjusting. And okay, no big deal, let's go on. Adults get all that unnerved, you know. But adults get bent out of shape. Kids, you learn to adjust, you know how it is. You know, kids, right? You know. Okay, so now, father takes the cup of wine, he's ready to make kiddush, and the children are all excited. It's a beautiful yontif, everything's normal, like they expect, like a regular Shabbos, like a regular holiday. Everything's beautiful, right? Except something's very strange. Usually when you make kiddush, you give a little bit of the wine to everybody. In this case, what happened? In this case, everybody's got their own cup, and a full one at that. And the children look and find it a little amusing. And what's going on? All right, we'll adjust. It's a different kind of holiday, whatever. And father makes the kiddush, and everybody sits down to drink, and they use that pillow there to recline to the left, you know. And okay, some new laws we're learning. Very good. And we go to wash. Orachatz, number 2. Well, kids are expecting that. What do you do after you make kiddush every Friday night? Wash. So the kids go to wash. Washing looks a little different though. Ordinarily speaking, when you wash, we would usually 2 times on each hand. All right? 1, 2, 1, 2. Chabad likes to do a little extra. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, whatever. Point is, this time, the washing will be only once. 1, 1. Okay. Stand at the table. It's supposed to be quiet, not allowed to talk. And instead of going for the bread, he goes for a vegetable. Whoa, that is weird. That is really strange. And in that strangeness, you understand, the kid's really getting unnerved now. And that's your whole goal. Stimulate him, infuriate him, make him crazy until he can ask. So obviously you take this silly thing, this little vegetable, and you dip it in. You dip it. I don't think it was the weirdest thing I ever saw. Now dipping is a kind of funny thing. Where do you find dips? At a banquet. Well, tonight's a banquet. It's Yontif, right? What kind of dips you usually find? Guacamole, trina, something really, real exotic, Salt water. I'm getting nervous by the minute. I'm getting more upset by the minute. Finally, Father goes, and this is going back and forth. Regular, irregular, regular, irregular, regular, irregular. Makes him a little nutty. It's the goal. And then you go to the bread. Okay, he's happy about that. We're back to normal, right? Except he opens up and doesn't see bread. He sees matzah. Okay, I mean, this is really a strange evening. But, I've seen matzah before. But usually I noticed that there was only 2 loaves on a Shabbos. Isn't that right? And this time I got 3. And then he takes one of the 3 and he breaks it. No bracha, no food, no eating, no nothing. This is really strange. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen, says the kid. And all of a sudden he hides it away. Totally out of sync, out of whack. It has no rhyme, no reason. Everything's wacky here. And that's the whole goal. That's what Chazal, that's what the Gemara puts in, karpas. Karpas to arouse the kid, to arouse the children. And so, at this time, we're ready to tell a story. Why? Because, you see, the child has been sufficiently stimulated, but when you really want to stimulate, and you really want to get someone really unnerved, you got to go a little bit over the top. The fact that the recline, that everyone drank their own cup, that we washed funny, we didn't make a bracha, and we didn't go, and we had this vegetable in the weirdest dip of all time, and on top of that, we went ahead and split the matzah and went on some wild goose chase to try and find it. It's building up inside. And guess what the father does? He pours a second cup of wine. Now you've never seen that before, ever. At that point, we will see it in the Haggadah in just a moment. In fact, you can see it now if you want. Take a look at it on page. Well, you can find Kiddush on page 12. You'll find the washing and the anyone else needs? There's 2 extras here. I have 2 extras. Actually, some extras here. You'll find the Kiddush on 12, the washing, the karpas, and the breaking of the middle matzah on 14, and on 15, he holds up the matzah and he invites people to come in. And he calls the matzah a really weird name. He calls it poor man's bread. And it does look, a little impoverished, to be perfectly honest. It's not exactly something you would serve at the Waldorf Astoria. But, and tonight's a Yontif. A Yontif, a Chag is a Waldorf Astoria, isn't it? Well, so at this point in time, the kid sees this, and he really is bent out of shape. And on page 16, the second cup is filled, and exasperated, the child says, why is this night different from all other nights? And you have got the story started. Now you're ready to go. And he asks some questions. The first question he asks is, hey, I know matzah, that's okay. We've eaten chametz and matzah before, intermittently. But tonight, only matzah at the table? What, are we broke? What's going on here? And 3, and 1 breaks. Then he says, all other nights, we all eat vegetables, but we see bitter. Because the karpas really was part of the moro that's going to be eaten later on. When we eat the bitter herbs later on, we're going to eat it together with the matzah. What's interesting is that to eat the matzah, you have to wash because it's bread. We're going to wash later on, a second washing. Then we're going to make the bracha, because that's what you have to do for bread. And we're going to eat the matzah. And then we're going to, after the matzah, eat the bitter herbs. And the bitter herb, which was eaten together with the matzah, because that's the way it was with the korban Pesach in those days, with the Pesach offering. So, in doing so, we really have to make a bracha on the bitter herbs. What bracha would you suggest on the bitter herbs? Adama. But we don't do it. You know why? Because we made an Adama back earlier in the Seder, the Karpas. And by not eating a full amount, and by eating a small amount and not requiring an after bracha for that Adama, we then connect that Adama to the maror we're going to eat later on, and not require that bracha. So you'll say to me, why do we require a bracha on Adama? I just washed, I ate a motzi. I don't require any bracha. The answer is because when you eat a meal, even if, let's say, you do wash and you do eat bread, it doesn't exempt all brachas, except those that are part of the meal. But maror is not part of the meal, it's an additive. When you have an additive, then you have to make a bracha. Everybody knows on dessert we make a bracha, even after we wash. Because why? Because it's an additive. It's not part of the meal. You understand? That being the case, therefore, we have a bracha of Adama that we should be reciting on the maror. And we don't do it. Because we had the Adama bracha earlier on the vegetable of karpas, which is a similar to the maror. And frankly, if you think about it, it's similar to the maror in the sense that it's also bitter because it was dumped in salt water, which isn't exactly the most flavorful of things. Yes?
What constitutes food being part of the same meal? Being the same thing?
No, that ordinarily is served as part of the meal. A salad, a soup, a main dish, and added vegetables. But you add something like bitter herbs to it, purely for the mitzvah, that's not part of the meal. Can anybody tell me another holiday which I add a food to it beforehand, before we start, that gets a bracha, even though it's part of the meal? Anybody? A holiday in which I will add a certain food to it and make a bracha on it because it's added, not part of the meal. Rosh Hashanah is right. I don't have to eat an apple and honey. It's not part of my meal. It's an additive. So I made a bracha on it. So if you take a look now and turn to page 37, where I wash for a meal, and there at 37, as I wash for the meal, I make the bracha on the Tilat Yadayim. Then I do motzi matzah. Motzi matzah means two brachas. Everyone with me on 37? I make the bracha for bread. Motzi lechem min haaretz. And then I make a bracha for the matzah. But it was interesting to note, and we've said this many, many times, you have to remember this, that the bracha of matzah adds 4 extra special words. What are those 4 special words that are added? Not only to the bracha of the matzah, but frankly to every bracha of every mitzvah. Asher kiddishanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. Everybody knows that there are 3 kinds of brachas. There's a bracha for pleasure, for food, and there's also a bracha for the mitzvah, and there's also a bracha for Thanksgiving. So let's say I want to make a bracha on bread. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Do I add the words Asher kiddishanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu? No. Because there's no obligation to eat bread. It's an elective. You want to eat it, make a bracha. Thank God. If, let's say, I want to eat, I want to put a mezuzah on my door, that's a mitzvah. That's not for my benefit, it's for a mitzvah. Therefore, I say the words, Asher kiddishanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. It's a mitzvah to do it. With matzah here, I got both. I got the fact that it's bread, and I have to say that, bracha motzi lechem haaretz. I also got the fact that I have to say that it's a mitzvah of the Torah to eat matzah tonight. Asher kiddishanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. Everyone understand? Then I turn the page, on page 38, I got the bitter herbs. Now the bitter herbs should have gotten 2 brachas. One Adama, because it's extra special added to the meal, and maror. But it doesn't get Adama. Why not? Because Adama was said earlier with the karpas. Had I eaten too much karpas and made an after bracha on the karpas, then I'd have to make an Adama here again. I can't extend it, because it's over once you make an after bracha. So therefore, I didn't do that. I ate a little bit of the karpas in the salt water, and then I could eat a little bit later on the maror without the extra added bracha adama. Simply asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav tzivanu al achilat maror. But wait a second, is maror a mitzvah of the Torah? Yes, it is, or yes, it was, not anymore. So why do I say asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav tzivanu? Because I say such words even on a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Why? Because at a mitzvah d'Rabbanan I'm saying, bless you, Hashem, King of the world. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav tzivanu, that you made us holy, and you commanded us to listen to the Rabbanan, who told us to eat the maror. Because maror today is the Rabbanan. Everyone understand? But I have to say that bracha. Then, of course, I really want to remember how it was in the Beis Hamikdash. So, on page 38 at the bottom, I'll make a sandwich, a korech, and I'll say, this is the reminder of what Hillel used to do in the Beis Hamikdash, Zeichel HaMikdash. Remember the way it used to be in the old days in the Beis Hamikdash, so that we remember how to do it, and we'll know how to do it when Hashem will return us to the Beis Hamikdash with the coming of Mashiach. In any event, going back to page 16, the children are asking. This night is certainly unusual. Chametz, matzah is the norm. Today only matzah, 3, broken, hiding. Today maror, I can eat all the vegetables. Today I got this bitter stuff. The bitter stuff, you understand, is what? The bitter stuff is the karpas, as we said earlier, that really aroused the child, plus the maror later on. Third question. We never do much dipping. Dipping isn't a part of the rituals. All of a sudden you want me to dip, and you're going to make me dip twice. You're going to dip the karpas in salt water, which I just saw you do, and you're going to dip later on the maror and the charoses. The reason maror is dipped in charoses, by the way, is to lighten the bitterness of it, so to speak. In any event, this is really bothering the child. That karpas really was weird, Dad. I mean, you got to admit it. That's really out of sorts. I mean, there's dipping stuff and salt water. I mean, we never do that. And finally, the last question is, all the nights we sit straight or leaning. Tonight you're leaning. What are you leaning for? At this point in time, the father's ready to answer questions. So once again, how do you tell a good story? Starting on page 17, you tell it with magid, which is a mitzvah d'oraisa, a mitzvah of the Torah. And it has to be done elaborately. And it has to be done in truth. What is truth? Truth, the Gemara teaches us the following. Matchil b'glut u'mesayem b'shvach. You must begin with degradation, shame, and humiliation. And you must end with triumph and victory and joy. What does it mean? Basically what it means is very simple. The truth is, of this whole story, that it wasn't all good. It was born out of suffering. And children cannot be shielded from that. In whatever level of age that they are, they must understand there is suffering in the world. And they must be taught to be empathetic. At the same time, they cannot be given hope, but give up hope and be